Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Hello.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. And Austin, it's season 5, episode 17. The Steelers are 1-0 after a 26-16 victory over the New York Giants. Not the prettiest victory, but considering the last time we saw Ben Roethlisberger, he was, tearing his elbow apart, and the Steelers season was falling apart. It was a welcome sign to see the performance that the Steelers put up. And again, a little rusty to start, but a solid finish down the stretch and a 1-0 record, something that the Steelers did not get out to last year, and as a matter of fact, have not won their opener since, I believe, 2017. Yeah, they haven't won their opener in 3 years, going back 3 years now. So it was nice to start out 1-0.
For sure. It feels like it's been forever since the offense put up more than 24 points. I literally can't remember the last time they put up more than 24 points, what it feels like. So it was nice to have an offense that put up 26. And going back, if the Steelers offense put 26 points up in every game last year, that after Ben got injured, they would have went on a 13-1 run the rest of the year. So if they can keep it up, this is perfect. 26 points a game, absolutely great.
In fact, it happened only twice last year. I'm going to double check to make sure I don't have to eat my words. But there were only 2 times last year the offense scored more than 26 points. So there was a grand total of 3 times the Steelers offense eclipsed 26 points. They were the 27-3 Monday night win over the Bengals, the 27-14 Monday night win over the Dolphins, and the week after that they beat the Colts 26-24. One touchdown of which was of the defensive variety from Minkah Fitzpatrick. So that doesn't really count as far as that's concerned. So, like you said, the fact that the Steelers had significant offensive contribution was pretty significant. And that's not to say, again, that it wasn't sexy early on. The Steelers' ground game took a little while to get in gear. James Conner was relatively ineffective and left injured. The offensive line, I felt, was relatively inconsistent, and Ben Roethlisberger had some rust to shake off. And we'll get into all of that. But first, why don't we talk a little bit about the injuries coming out of the game? There was one extremely significant injury, and that was at right tackle Zach Banner. Tore his ACL on, I believe, the final touchdown the Steelers scored in the game, and it was pretty upsetting scene where you could see that Banner was visibly emotional and he knew it was pretty bad. And unfortunately, after years of working to streamline his body and get more cut, if you will, and fight for that starting job, he finally got it. And in his first opportunity, he tears his ACL. You really have to feel for the guy.
It was just really terrible to see the emotion on his face, and he basically knew that it was going to be season ending. It just awful. I really wish the best for the guy because this was going to be his season to show that he could be a starter. And he came out and tweeted afterward that he proved that he could be a starter in this league into this. But still, it is likely that he's going to remain a Steeler into next year because of this, which, I mean, I'm happy, but I'm not happy for him because he should be going to get paid somewhere like Chris Hubbard did. I mean, I guess at least he's a Steeler for one more year.
In the long run, this probably benefits the Steelers, assuming he can return to full strength without any setbacks going forward. Because, like you said, he will be an unrestricted free agent, and with only one start under his belt in the last 4 years, I have to imagine he's not going to come too expensive. But obviously, in the short term, that's awful for him, and it hurts the Steelers in terms of a depth standpoint. So now Chukwuma Okorafor has to be the starting right tackle. And with depth having been depleted, the Steelers actually went out and reacquired former Steelers tackle Gerald Hawkins. You might remember he was involved in a trade to the Buccaneers last season. So Hawkins is back to fill out some of the depth on the roster. I don't believe he started a game when he was in Pittsburgh. I remember he played in a handful, but I don't recall him starting at all.
I can't say I remember him starting either. I don't think he's ever started a game.
The good news you can take away from it is that he's at least familiar with the system. So, say what you will. Obviously, you hope you don't have to see him, but I feel at least secure in knowing that he has at least a good idea of what he's doing out there.
He said he talked to Randy Fichtner and asked him if he ran three different plays though, and he said yes, and he said, all right, I'm good to go. That was literally something he said, so that was awesome. I love that energy from him.
That's nice, but also concerning, too.
Change. So, I mean, it means teams are like, oh, wow, so we know what they're doing.
It means the Steelers run 3 plays is what the average fan is going to look at it and say, but obviously we know that there's more to it than that, but it's just kind of funny to look back and say something like that. But and speaking of roster moves, there's other things going on. What you want to talk about? What happened with Curtis Riley?
Sure. So Gerald Hawkins did the same, but Curtis Riley terminated his contract with the Steelers like Gerald Hawkins terminated his contract with the Texans. This is kind of a new thing that came with this CBA. And so the way this works is with the new CBA is that any player that gets protected on the practice squad, meaning another team can't sign them for the week, and doesn't get elevated to the 53-man roster that same week, has the ability to terminate their contract. So this allows players like Curtis Riley and Gerald Hawkins to take jobs as part of a team's 53-man roster instead of being stuck on the practice squad by being protected all year by the same team when they obviously are being protected for a reason likely, and they could likely get to another team's 53. So that is exactly what happened with Curtis Riley. Curtis Riley terminated his contract with the Steelers after being protected the week before and has now since signed to the Arizona Cardinals active roster. So I guess I wish him luck.
So with the whole players being protected on the practice squad, who have the Steelers protected this week?
So the Steelers chose to protect outside linebacker Jaron Elliott, defensive end Henry Mondeau, guard Derwin Gray, who I expect to be on the active roster for the next game, and running back Wendell Smallwood again.
All right. There were several other injuries coming out of the Giants game. Let's get to them. So the big one is obviously James Conner. Outside of Zach Banner, we talked about him. He only had 9 yards on 6 carries. He was pretty ineffective. And again, he left the game with an injury. This is now the 17th time in the last 21 games that James Conner has either missed totally or has left partway through the game. He returned to full practice after not practicing on Wednesday. He returned on Thursday. So there's a chance he could still start and possibly play a significant amount, but we're not sure about his status right now, and we can talk more about how he should be used going forward in our next podcast. But, just not something you wanted to see after James Conner spent all this time trying to train to make sure that he'd be able to handle the bulk of the touches just like he did in 2018. But James Conner right now is looking more like the 2019 version, and that's not good news.
That's not ideal. The one thing I said for Conner is he had to stay healthy in the first game. Only after six carries, he was already injured and already has an ankle sprain. So, I mean, at least it's not a high ankle sprain, but it's just not good. He didn't look good prior to the injury, which also doesn't fare well. It's just unfortunate that he's already hurt going into the year. Hopefully it doesn't linger.
Guard Stefan Wisniewski also left the game late with a chest injury. From what I understand, it's a pec injury. The severity is, for the most part, unknown, but he hasn't been placed on IR yet. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday, so it could be a strain or a tear from what I've seen, but for the most part, we're just kind of in the dark as far as he goes.
I wouldn't be surprised if after this week he gets placed on IR and they realize it's worse than it was, but at the moment we don't really know how bad it is, like you said.
A bunch of other players did not practice on Wednesday, including Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Stephon Tuitt, and Alejandro Villanueva, but they all practiced on Thursday. The only guy who did not practice both days that wasn't included in that group was David DeCastro. He didn't practice at all either. Slight bit of news to mention, a bit of a footnote. Tuzar Skipper former Steelers linebacker, has signed with the Titans practice squad. So, the skipper watch continues as he moves on to Tennessee. Let's move into the game. Monday Night Football. I don't know what your expectations for how long it would have taken Ben Roethlisberger to get off the schneid would be, but I felt a lot better about the way the game was going to go if he got the ball in a tie game 0-0 or only down 3-0. The defense held on the first drive. The Giants drove the ball a little bit. But right away, Deontay Johnson muffed a punt, and I had a pretty bad feeling about that. The Steelers holding there on that subsequent drive to just 3 points was huge. It wasn't the biggest moment of the game, but the game goes a lot differently if they allow a touchdown there.
Yeah, pretty good play from the defense, really. It's just the Giants were set up to score, and with Saquon Barkley, it's pretty tough to keep him out of the end zone. But Steelers were able to keep him to 3, which was huge for them going forward in the game. It wasn't the difference maker. The Steelers were able to win by 10, but I mean, still, it was just a big deal when early on in the game. It saved some momentum from going fully in the Giants' direction.
Beyond that, there were a bunch of other key plays that were made in the game that I want to talk about, but as we go through, the Steelers had a relatively ugly 3-and-out, and then they were able to get the ball rolling on their second drive, a nice 13-play, 59-yard drive. The biggest play of that drive, besides the scoring play, the field goal itself, had to be Chase Claypool's first career catch, which was a 28-yard pass on a floater that Claypool had the nice toe tap on. You want to talk about a welcoming to the NFL moment? That was a big one for Claypool.
That was incredible. That was Amazon's. You know how Amazon does like the statistics for a percentage of a catch being made? That was the most unlikely catch of the NFL the entire week. So big time throw, big time catch. It was just really good to welcome Claypool into the NFL. Just amazing hands. Very
limited action for Claypool, but he did have 2 receptions in the game and had the ball in his hands for the Steelers' last major offensive play of the game, which was a jet sweep that essentially clinched the game. And only in those 3 plays, he looked like he played with that speed that he charted on those 40-yard dashes in the springtime.
Yeah, man. I mean, he looks good so far. His yards per route run is ridiculous because he didn't run that many routes. He only ran 7 routes in total, so he got 2 catches on those 7 routes. So his yards per route run was like over 5 because of that. So pretty good for a low amount of snaps already being targeted. And on one of his other snaps, he actually beat his cornerback with his hands. He just wasn't targeted. So he looks good so far, which is incredible to see already.
I know it's early, but what's his upside? Do you think he could be a number 1 receiver after just 1 week?
I don't know if I could say that, but I think that he's already getting playing time. Even if it was just I don't know how many snaps he actually played. He only ran 7 routes, but he played more snaps.
I can figure that out for you. You just give me a second here.
The point of that being, without the specifics, is that with how many snaps he played, I think that he could definitely come in and contribute and be a number 2 right now because they love his blocking. You know what I noticed in the game was he was coming in on a lot of running downs to come and block, and his blocking is really solid. He was known for that in Notre Dame. So I think that right now he could definitely be a solid number 2 if, like, let's say Deontay Johnson goes down for whatever reason, knock on wood, because I don't want that to happen. But it's just, I think that he could come in and be serviceable. I think he's been, from what I've heard from camp and from the little I've seen in week 1.
All right. Total snaps. Chase Claypool played 19 snaps in the game, which of the 18 Steelers players that played, it's not many. Only James Conner is the only regular that played less snaps than him, but that's because he was injured. Guys that played less snaps than him include guys like Chukwuma Okorafor and Kevin Dotson, who were out there due to injury. Derek Watt's the only guy who you could say didn't play as much, and he's not a specialist, but I mean his primary objective is to be a special teams player, but he's used in certain packages just like Claypool. So Claypool had just under 20 snaps in total.
So I think he did well. I'd like to see more. I think that he's going to earn more reps as the year goes on, but think it's pretty cool that he already cracked that many snaps on week 1.
So, snaps lined up for field. Okay, so in terms of, so this is kind of interesting. According to Pro Football Focus, I just mentioned the snap counts. In terms of snaps on the field for running plays, Chase Claypool was tied for third for being on for snaps on running plays like that. That's kind of interesting. That's kind
That's what I'm saying.
That's kind of confusing. I
I
think
noticed that. Like, he was playing on runs a lot.
I think it might have more to do with him actually carrying the ball. I think that's actually what it is. But
Maybe that too.
I know he was on. Okay. Here we go. Run block. So Claypool was further down, but 11 of his 19 plays were runs that he was on the field. So that's a little more indicative of the fact that more than half of the plays he was on, he was actually run blocking and not running a route. So there you go.
So it's interesting. I noticed in the game that he was being used as a single wide receiver on the field rather than like Juju or Dante or James Washington a lot in that game. It felt like I saw it a couple of times.
For whatever it's worth, he was the highest graded offensive player for the Steelers.
Really? What was his PFF grade?
90.2.
Wow.
The lowest was Vance McDonald with a 37.4.
Hate to see it.
Yeah, so kind of interesting. But okay, let's get back here. Let's get back to the action. So what else? Oh yeah, so that broken play. So the Steelers had a field goal, tied the game, and then the Giants go down the field 75 yards, and then there was that broken, I guess busted assignment, if you will. I think it was just good play design, and Minka and the linebackers were sucked in a little bit and made the wrong read. But that 41-yard touchdown pass to your boy Darius Slayton gave the Giants a 10-3 lead. That's really, I felt like, the only hiccup the defense truly allowed that was really damaging. I know they had the 19-play drive later on and that late drive that resulted in a touchdown, but this is the only time I really felt badly about the defense.
And even then, Daniel Jones just had a really nice throw on that, too. And as you said, I'm a big fan of Slayton. He leads the NFL in touchdowns since week 5 of last year, as you informed me, with 10. So he's really good at getting in the end zone. It was just, and people blame Minka, people blame Steve Nelson. That was really, we go through this every year. We see this play, the Steelers get burnt on it, usually once a year. And then people argue on who it's on. It's on Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden has to get across the field. It is not Minka Fitzpatrick's responsibility. Joe Hayden is playing as the quote-unquote free safety in that regard, and he has to get across the field. It's also on Steven Nelson because it's still his assignment. Joe Hayden was supposed to be over there to give him help.
I mean, that's just the Yankee concept, and we've seen that. We've seen the Steelers run that too. But isn't this the same type of concept that we saw the Steelers defense play when they played the Patriots a couple years ago, and everyone blamed Artie Burns when it wasn't his fault?
It's exactly that play. Like, it's always argued. People just don't know how the defense is run. It is how it is. Like,
alrighty then. So after the Giants scored that touchdown, the Steelers' offense was still sputtering, and they got a nice break when the first play of the Giants' ensuing drive after Steelers 3-0, a fantastic athletic play by T.J. Watt that I actually had forgotten about until I just saw this, just because it was such a, I don't want to say freak thing because he made it happen, but it just happened so quickly, and all of a sudden the Steelers took over at the Giants 36, went right down the field and scored. Ben Roethlisberger, a perfect lofted pass into the end zone that Juju Smith-Schuster ran under and caught for the first touchdown of the season for Ben Roethlisberger. First touchdown since he threw one to Smith-Schuster against the Bengals in the finale of the 2018 season. And right around then, it felt like the Steelers might finally have something back. And the offense sputtered on their following drive after that. But the last drive of the first half is where things really started to turn around and where I felt like the Steelers were starting to take control. An 8-play, 78-yard touchdown drive that included a lot of no-huddle, and it resulted in James Washington with a big man type of effort on his first touchdown of the season, initially hurdling a man and being hit before the goal line, but continuing to drive those legs and was able to get into the end zone. So the Steelers' 2 touchdowns came as a result of a turnover forced by T.J. Watt, which was nice to see, and then they finally were able to put together a long touchdown drive at the end of the first half.
Yeah, I can't stress how important points off of turnovers are. Look at this game, and the Steelers had 10 points off of turnovers. They got touchdown following the pick, and then the first pick, I'm sorry. And then they got a field goal following Cameron Hayward's interception. So points after turnovers is a big reason the Steelers weren't so good last year. The Steelers, despite having 35 interceptions alone, is just they weren't getting the points off of turnovers. To be able to get points on both times they got turnovers in this game was so huge for them. A big turnaround for them. And that James Washington touchdown, even though that wasn't off points off of turnovers, that was awesome. They reminded me of back in the extension when Antonio Brown played against the Ravens a few years ago. He was covered. He was tackled at the 1 by 3 guys, and he said, "Nah, that's my touchdown." So he played well in the few snaps, in the few catches he had. So that was awesome as well. Yeah, just all in all, really good. I mean, T.J. Watt getting a interception in his first game. It's kind of interesting. He doesn't really drop back into coverage much, but that was played perfectly. Daniel Jones didn't see it coming. He saw T.J. Watt coming up, and then he just stepped back at the perfect time. Interception. It was a great play.
His 4th career interception. So, interesting stat. I know this because of an old Steelers DVD, but Joey Porter, when he retired at the time of his retirement, he was, or at least since he left the Steelers, he was one of 2 players in NFL history with 60 sacks and 10 plus interceptions. And Watt already has 4 interceptions, and what does he have, like 35 sacks in his career now already?
Hey, he's coming for that record, man. He's coming for it.
And I thought that since he'd be rushing as an edge rusher more, last year and this year, I thought since he'd be rushing more, he wouldn't be getting those opportunities, and he's not getting as many. But he has 3 interceptions in the past year and a game now, after not having one for all of his sophomore season. So, he's still as productive as ever, and he had the most impactful 1 tackle game I think I've ever seen.
Easily. Wasn't he the highest graded PFF defensive player, from what I remember?
I think he was the highest graded player, period. I think he was the highest graded defensive player in football last week. At least on defense. I'll have to check that. Hold on.
I think you're wrong.
Actually, no.
Had it.
Larry Ogunjobi just barely edged him out.
I was gonna say, I remember them. I was watching Twitter. It said Larry Ogunjobi. I remembered it being a Browns player. I couldn't remember who. Yeah, T.J. Watt just with the pressures, man. Daniel Jones had to be getting the ball. Another PF stat that I saw: the Steelers had the most pressures within 2.5 seconds of any team in the league this week, partially because of that, man. T.J. Watt is just amazing coming off the ball, amazing in the pressure. Daniel Jones, I was kind of impressed with Daniel Jones. I know it was a 3-sack game, but with how bad his offensive line was, I was impressed with how fast he was able to get the ball off at times, especially since he had no running game. He had to throw over 40 times, which is unideal when you have Saquon Barkley. Just to give credit where it's due, I thought Daniel Jones actually had a really solid game for the defense he was playing and what offensive line he had to play with.
I'm trying to check some of these stats here. I'll have to get back to them. But let's move to the second half. So the Steelers punt on their opening drive. And then the Giants, they only had 3 second-half possessions because 2 of those drives spanned a total of, 32 plays. They had a grand total of 32 plays between 2 of those drives.
19 came on that one where Cameron Hayward got an interception at the goal line. So that was a really long drive to get killed. So
the Steelers, Dustin Colquitt, their new punter with the coverage team, was able to pin the Giants at their own 9-yard line, and they converted 1, 2, 3. Actually, no, 1, 2, 3, 4. They converted 4 third downs and 1 fourth down on the way to a 2nd and 3, where give Bud Dupree a lot of credit. He never gave up on that play. I thought he was the Steelers' best defender that day, even though T.J. Watt was graded higher by PFF. Dupree, I felt, was the most impactful, at least to the eye. And Cameron Hayward, it wasn't a pretty-looking interception, but as soon as that ball was in the air, he was the guy. It was going to be his.
Incredible. First career interception. It's just amazing for the captain, dude. I was not expecting that. That would have been a heck of a bold prediction. Cameron Hayward interception at the goal line. Incredible. There's a good amount of bold predictions you could have had for this game, like Ben Roethlisberger out-rushing
Saquon
Barkley.
Yeah. And how big was that? The thing I was most concerned about was how impactful Barkley would be. And I know he got his yards through the air, but in terms of his ability on the ground, he was a non-factor. I mean, it's one of the lowest total rushing yardage totals that we've ever seen. I think it's like the lowest in a game for a player with at least 15 carries since like 1984 or something like that. It was very impressive. And he was tackled for a loss 11 times.
And that's absolutely insane. The defensive line played well, and I would like to point out one of my concerns going into this year was nose tackle. I didn't know what to think of Tyson Alualu nose tackle. I know that's where he started when he was with the Jaguars, and then when the Steelers brought him in, they changed him to a defensive end. But wow, Tyson Alualu, in my opinion, was the second best player on the field usually that day, and it feels so weird. My tier were Bud Dupree and then Tyson Alualu, and that sounds like an insult, but it's not. It feels so weird. Just like 2 years ago, calling Bud Dupree like the best player on defense would have meant that the defense did bad. At least that's how I would have processed it. Now even Tyson Alualu having good games does not take away from the defense. They just had monstrous games. Tyson Alualu was in the backfield so many times. I don't know if it was because he was going against the rookie center, Nick Gates, and that's just why. But I hope he keeps it up, because if he keeps it up, the only weak point on defense we have is Terrell Edmunds, and Terrell Edmunds still is a tackling machine. He led the team in tackles, so he has at least one thing for him.
What did you think about Edmunds? Because he was out of position on a couple plays. I didn't think he was bad. I didn't think he was that bad. I thought he was just fine. And when the rest of the defense is playing the way it has, I think that he's just fine, and that's okay.
That's what I'm saying. He's the weak link, I think, but him being a weak link, he's okay. With the tackling he does, he's a sound tackler. Again, he finished with the most tackles of the day for the Steelers. Coverage isn't great. We're going to see that. We're probably not. I don't think he's going to take that step. I think he's just going to be an okay player, and that's fine. Not every player is going to be a Hall of Fame caliber or elite or anything like that. If he just plays okay, if he keeps up the tackling, I'm more than okay with how he plays. If he doesn't, Sean Davis is ready and willing, and he has experience. I feel comfortable with the strong safety position.
So the weak links on defense are either Edmunds or Vince Williams, and we already mentioned Edmunds led the team in tackles, half a tackle for loss. Vince Williams had 3 for a loss, including a violent sack of Daniel Jones in that game. So, just pay it forward. Those guys did their jobs, and, they were effective. But after that interception, that was really, probably, in my opinion, the second biggest play of the game, because, in my opinion, the biggest play of the game happened 2 plays later. Benny Snell, who after coming on for James Conner, had a really solid game with I believe that was his first career 100-yard rushing game, because I think he was just short of it in the Bengals game last year.
I think you're right. I think you're correct.
So he had a 30-yard run in this game, finished with a $113 on 19 carries. He looked like...
Just to cut in, I got my bold prediction right. I said for my bold prediction, Benny Snell would have a 25-yard run. He got it.
Yeah, he was very good. He looked that extra bit faster that a running back looks like after they cut some weight, like all the Steelers running backs seem to do after year 1.
It was very impressive. It's raised a lot of questions. I know we're going to go into it mostly in the next podcast, but there's questions about who's going to be the starter going forward at running back with the injuries and stuff, how he looked.
And Snell has definitely given himself a good game with this, but there was one blemish, and it could have been huge. He fumbled after a 21-yard run of his own where he hadn't properly secured the ball, and in a a pile of what felt like 6, 7, even like 8 Giants. It felt like it was Juju Smith-Schuster who dove on the ball and held it long enough for the officials to say that it was he that had it. That, I felt like, was the biggest play of the game, even bigger than the interception by Cameron Hayward. And I know that I don't want to diminish that play because if the Giants scored there and they take the lead, maybe the game plays out differently. But I think the defense, having just come off that 19-play drive, if they're put right back out on the field, on the wrong side of the field, I think there's a very good chance the Giants go down and score anyways.
Yeah, shout out to Juju on that play. That was a really, really good heads-up play. I can't believe he came up with that. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, yeah, the Giants have that. Because like you said, there were 6 Giants there. So it was 6 or, 7.
There was a ton.
It was a ridiculous.
There was a lot.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of Giants there. They should have not. The Steelers should have not recovered that, but it was just really, really crazy. So good for Juju. What a high-quality play. Cam Newton would never.
Not... Oh, that's great. I just wanted to butt in real quick. Are you watching Thursday Night Football?
Yeah, I just saw Andy Yanovich recover the onside.
Yeah, but our +6s stand here, my friend.
Yes, sir.
So,
I mean, I'm surprised. I really thought the Bengals could win. Yeah, I'm happy. Tyler Boyd touchdown, just to keep it within the 6.
So, anyways, a guy that did play really well in this game, a guy that had a rough year last year. Let's talk a little bit about Juju. I have his PFF stats pulled up here. In terms of wide receivers from the slot in Week 1, only Russell Gage had more receptions from the slot in Week 1. And of everyone that had 6 or more catches from the slot this past week, Smith-Schuster is the only guy that caught all of his targets. And for a grand total of 69 yards, which is nice. He finished 7th most in the league for that, including 2 touchdowns, which was tied for the most with Devontae Adams. So he was very effective out of the slot in this game. He caught all of his passes out of there. So now that he's back and Ben Roethlisberger's back, it feels like Smith-Schuster is now in the best position to be the best player that he can be.
No, I tried telling everyone. After Antonio Brown left, I said the biggest reason Juju Smith was struggling was not because Antonio Brown left. I said that it was because Juju had switched his position, his wide receiver position, that is. Moving from the slot to the X is what really screwed him up because he really fits best and projects best as a slot. And what we saw in this game was exactly what it fixed everything. It put him back in the slot where he thrives. And that's where you get a 6-for-6 stat line with 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. Because that is his natural position and where he thrives. It's so good that he is back in the slot. I'm so excited for that because I felt like I kept telling everyone going into this year, if he is put back into the slot, you're going to see Juju not only do better because Ben's back, but because he's playing his natural wide receiver position. And we saw that here. I hope he keeps it up so that I don't sound like an idiot. It was just a one-game thing. To me, he's already done so well in one game.
Wanted to throw a couple more PFF stats at you. I know the Giants scored on that last long touchdown drive, which you don't want to see, but I think all things considered, it's forgivable, but, you want to see them finish the game a little stronger. But I wanted to toss around a couple more PFF stats. So 2 of their more stable metrics for evaluating quarterbacks is how a quarterback performs when he's given a clean pocket and how he performs when he's under pressure. The metric when he's kept clean is probably the most accurate and telling. So Ben Roethlisberger finished 7th in the NFL last week in passer rating from a clean pocket. And his only issue...
Nice, that's really good.
The only disparity when you look at the other top guys, the only main difference is that his completion percentage was 8 points lower than the next lowest of the top 7. But remember, he was rusty early on. I think he had 11 incompletions, and I'm sure that a decent amount of them were in those first few drives.
He also had Stefan Wisniewski playing defense for the Giants on one of the James Conner screens early on.
Yeah, Wisniewski, a guy that went out injured. I thought he played okay, but not as good as I was hoping for either, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I was expecting too much. I'm just so used to the Steelers offensive line. I was thinking that too, but I was like, he's supposed to be a backup. He wasn't supposed to even be starting. He just got here. It's not like he's got developing. I know it's like there's stuff to learn. It's probably not as much as other positions, but I don't know. I felt like he did enough.
And while it's definitely true the Steelers' defense was very good, I also want to point out the Giants' offensive line was bad. Daniel Jones had the lowest percentage of dropbacks where he wasn't under pressure, 45%. So he was under pressure more than he was not. Now, as far as under pressure goes, Roethlisberger had the 5th best passer rating of quarterbacks under pressure in Week 1, including, let's see, I'm trying to see if I can find some other stats here that are worthy of. He just wasn't under pressure as much. 25% of his dropbacks he was under pressure, which was 12th, 12th, which isn't the best, but it's also not the worst. Meanwhile, Mr. Daniel Jones was 22nd, so rough game for him, but I thought he did some things pretty well in this game too. But all in all, not the prettiest game, but the Steelers came up with the big plays in this one. Anyone else you wanted to shine the light on while I'm trying to think of other things to discuss?
Hey, you know what I was surprised on? I was surprised with 2 things on defense. I was surprised with how much Alex Highsmith played. I was surprised with how much Ola Adaney played. Ola was so close to his sack. He fell. If he didn't fall, he would have had a sack. He had like a zombie-like play where he made it past the line of scrimmage and just kind of looks like he trips over maybe an offensive lineman's foot, and then he just starts crawling on the ground like a zombie. But he would have had an easy sack if he hadn't fallen, because he made it through. But I was surprised to see him a lot. And then Alex Highsmith didn't play that much. It's just I noticed him on the field when he was there. Alex Highsmith was a big part of chasing Daniel Jones down late in the game to stop him from running gain, really. I forget when exactly that happened, but he ran him out of bound. He just really had good acceleration. And I felt like I saw Highsmith like a few times on the field. I think he had 7 total snaps, though, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that.
Hold on, I'll get that for you.
Yeah, Highsmith played more snaps than I was expecting. I did not expect Highsmith to be playing this first game. Oh, one more thing. 3 plays. I forgot about this.
He had a grand total of 10.
Okay, 10. Spillane, I also don't know why Spillane was playing snaps over Vince Williams. I don't really get that one, Chief. I really thought Marcus Allen would be the hybrid inside linebacker brought in if you're taking Vince Williams off the field. Spillane didn't do anything necessarily wrong. I don't know if I agree with that one, Chief. I thought Spillane was only going to be on special teams. That was interesting as well.
There were only 8 snaps for Spillane. 5 of them were in coverage and 3 were in rush defense. So I actually don't remember him on the field, honestly.
I remember tweeting about it. I was like, is that Spillane? I was just confused. I was like, why is he playing defense?
Are you concerned that you saw him and not Ulysses Gilbert?
What's it called? No, Gilbert was inactive, so
that's what I mean, because Gilbert's a guy that does play special teams too.
Yeah, but Spillane was so much better. Like, Gilbert was good, but Spillane was like really good. Like Tyler Matakevich good at special teams at the end. So that doesn't worry me. I'm more concerned that Spillane's coming on the field instead of Marcus Allen in those when Marcus Allen's active.
No snaps on defense for Marcus Allen last week.
I'm saying, like, I thought he was going to be the hybrid inside linebacker type, but I guess they don't view him that way. You know, was practicing there? Question mark.
We just don't know.
Don't know.
So a few other concerns I just wanted to bring up. Number 1 is the Steelers allowed 8 of 15 on 3rd downs, which I know that it's not the 1970s. Shutting out a team in 3 straight games is just not going to happen. I think I read somewhere there were 4 shutouts across the NFL last season. So, in the 1976 Steelers had 5 in that season. So it's not common. But I think one thing you can nitpick a little bit is their 3rd down defense, partially contributing to that 19-play drive. And I also thought special teams was not great in this one. lack of preseason. I guess I kind of get it. A couple longer punt returns given up. Boswell hit the post on a PAT. Just things that weren't too bad this week, but could be bad if they don't get better soon.
Yeah, special teams was definitely the worst facet of the Steelers in this game, with the long returns giving up the missed extra point and the muff punt right at the beginning. There was a 4-point swing when you consider that extra point and the 3 points they got from that field goal that the Steelers could have won by 26-12 instead. I'm sorry, 27-13. Wow, I can't math. But it's just the special teams got to get better, because I felt like the returns being given up were a little bit too long, and then just it felt like all the mistakes were happening on special teams. At least Dustin Colquitt was consistent, though. That was solid.
Any final closing thoughts on this game? Hello? Looks like we might have lost Austin here. We're going to continue to move on for now, and I'm going to put this game behind us for now. Just a great game overall for the Steelers, and the big thing is that Ben Roethlisberger played well and that he seemed to be relatively healthy after the game. Not the best game he's played, but after he shook off the rust, after he got into a rhythm at the end of the first half, it felt like he was the same old Ben, the guy that we saw in 2018 that led the NFL in passing yards. So obviously that's a good sign to see. And, all we can do now is kind of evaluate week by week how he's going to be doing. So far,
it's just time to build on that performance.
So far, so good. Did your internet just cut out again?
It did. I don't know what happened. I stopped hearing you. I was just chilling there, and I was waiting for you to say something, and then it was like nothing. Then I heard you back in the middle of a sentence. So I was like,
Okay.
Okay.
I was just I was getting ready to move on. I was wondering if there was anything else you wanted to say.
I just cut out then because I said, no, I'm good, and then I waited, and I didn't hear anything, so I stopped.
No, you're good. I just meant, was there anything else you wanted to add about the game before we move on from that?
No, I think I'm good.
Alrighty then. So let's move into stuff that happened around the league in Week 1. Do you want to talk about every game, or do you want to try and just highlight some of the bigger games?
I don't care, either or.
All right, well,
I actually, for the first time in a while, I actually got to watch most of the NFL games this week. Like, I haven't really had free time to do that the past season, so I wasn't really knowledgeable. I actually watched a lot of the games this week.
So I'm going to at least start with this first game here, and we'll see how every single one goes. Maybe there'll be something to say about all of them, but Seahawks and Falcons, this really felt like one of the first times that Pete Carroll just unleashed Russell Wilson, and he put together one of the best games that I've seen a quarterback play recently. And he was fantastic. 31 of 35, 4 touchdowns. It's almost like they should have been letting him do this the whole time.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's almost like he can throw. I was impressed with this game. I was also kind of disappointed in the Seahawks defense. Giving 450 yards when you're supposed to be that good, when you have Jamal Adams now and stuff, is just that was a little concerning. They won by a lot, but giving up that many yards concerns me. I thought the defense should have been better.
Jets and Bills, your suspicions about possibly making the wrong pick regarding the Jets appears to be correct. One weekend, they already look like a dumpster fire. Le'Veon Bell goes to IR, and Sam Darnold and the Jets' struggles continued. They only lost by 10, but that game felt like a lot worse than that.
I'm so mad. Jets are the worst team in football. Chris Herndon's trash. Le'Veon Bell is trash. That offensive line is trash. Never listen to what a Jets fan tells you. Go with your gut.
Hey,
trash on the Jets.
The only guy I'm rooting for there is Frank Gore. I'd love to see Frank Gore have a big season. Otherwise, I don't want anything to do with them.
Exactly.
All right, Bears, Lions. The Lions, it's a story as old as time. I went to take a nap sometime around the third quarter of the 1 o'clock games. The Lions had a big lead. I wake up and all of a sudden I see the Bears celebrating the go-ahead touchdown. It's like, what just happened? And that's what Lions fans have been saying for years and years.
That was a tough one, man. Like that one the Lions had and they threw it away. Stafford throws a pick. The Bears are able to drive downfield, get a touchdown to take the lead. And the Lions are able to drive all the way downfield, almost get the touch. DeAndre Swift dropped a would-be touchdown to win the game. And then the Bears end up winning. That was a tough one. That was tough, and I was mad. I was mad because I felt good. The Lions were covering, and then they weren't.
I need to find the stat, but Will was telling me something about how the Lions have just this abysmal record under Patricia when they have a lead going into the fourth quarter.
That's wild. I can't believe that.
Will was very upset because in a press conference when he was criticized, Patricia referred to a play call that he had from Super Bowl 49. He says, I think I've got one of the biggest plays in the fourth quarter in the history of the NFL where I think I did a pretty good job. So I don't think it's that. I don't think it's something in his coaching that's happening in the fourth quarter. So he basically said that it's not his fault because he made that one play call.
Incredible. Damn, dude. I want to go. Everyone should live their career off their one best play call of all time.
Not to mention the players, maybe they executed it well too. I mean, if they ran the ball with Marshawn Lynch, that wouldn't have even mattered. He probably wouldn't even have a job.
That is true.
So, what do I know? NFC North, another game, Packers at Vikings. Did I underestimate the Packers or did I overestimate the Vikings? I don't know.
I underestimated the Packers. I don't know about you, but I was ready to set Aaron Rodgers on fire and get out of the NFL like in the next 3 years. So I feel like I owe him an apology, even if it's just after one game and the Vikings have no quarterbacks. He did was still very impressive. It was it's hard. You could make an argument for him having the best quarterback performance of the week. It's really hard and tough because I think Russell Wilson really did, but Aaron Rodgers did was incredible. He looked like Aaron Rodgers of old, which I didn't think we would see. And just overall, they just decimated the Vikings. The Vikings made it look close at the end, but the Vikings are just not good. Vikings are just not a good team.
So the thing I think that's important to remember about the Packers is that even though, you remember I was on record saying this last year that they were probably the least impressive 13-win team I'd ever seen, even a regression back to the mean from 13 wins still has you at like a 10-win team. That's still a solid team.
Easily. You know what's funny is that from that they could finish this year 11-5, and if they play like they did in that game for like those 11 wins, I would think they were better than the 13-3 team last year.
That's not unheard of. The Steelers regressed from a 15-win team to an 11-win team in 2004 and 2005, and they regressed and won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, man. So it's not, regular season doesn't matter very much.
All that matters is getting in, and that's something that these next two teams have done very differently over the past 20 years. The Dolphins and Patriots, Cam Newton, new offense. The Patriots looked pretty good. I was not expecting them to run Cam Newton as much as they did in this one, but is this what the new Patriots offense is? Possibly.
I guess so, man. I don't know. I want to see Newton throw some more.
Now, Josh McDaniels said that the offense that he sculpted for Newton was something very similar to what he had for Tim Tebow in Denver the one year that they were together. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
It is interesting. That made Tim Tebow phenomenon for 1 year. I'm not even going to call him good.
Actually, I was going to say, if I could butt in there, he actually was not the coach of the team the 1 year you're thinking of. So Tebow was the quarterback in Denver for 2 years, but the first year, 2010, his rookie year, he actually did not play much. So he played a little bit, but the breakout year, the playoff game with the Steelers, he was not the coach in Denver at that time. At least I don't think so. I'm going to double check.
Interesting. Okay. What is he talking about? That he made the thing for Tebow if he was gone by the year that he was actually doing anything?
Well, that doesn't mean that he didn't have things for him too. Because he still played, he just didn't play as much as he did, in his breakout season. Alrighty, here we go. Josh McDaniels. Yeah, he was only the coach of the Broncos from 2009 to 2010. Tebow played in the NFL with the Broncos in 2010 and 11. So, man, Tebow only played for 3 years. I really felt like it was a little bit more than that.
It felt like a long time. Really felt like too long.
So Tebow only started 3 games his rookie year, but he did play in 9. He threw 82 passes, and that's passing yards. And I see rushing yards. He had 43 rushes and 6 touchdowns. So it looks to me like he occasionally passed when he was the starting quarterback for 3 games, and otherwise when he was running it, he was basically a red zone runner. So there was some aspect there.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. Eagles at the Washington football team. The Eagles were absolutely savaged by injury, and it looked like your whole taking Mitch's advice regarding the Eagles and Washington's team, it didn't look like it was going to pan out right away. A 17-0 lead that Washington spotted them, but that defensive line looks legit, and Carson Wentz and the Eagles folded.
Yeah, that was tough. It's the exact opposite of what happened in Week 1 last year. The Washington football team went up 17-0 last year and blew it to the Eagles at the end. And this year, the Eagles went up 17-0 and blew it at the end. 8 sacks for the Washington football team. Brian King looked good. Chase Young looked good.
Deron Payne?
That pass rush. Deron Payne, yeah, him as well. Eagles' offensive line is just decimated, man. That offensive line is in trouble.
Yeah, you think the Steelers' offensive line is in trouble. The Eagles can one-up us easily.
Yeah, they lost Brandon Brooks, who's arguably the best guard in the entire NFL. You can make that argument. I'm not sure I will, but he's top 3, I think, in my mind.
He's very important to them.
Exactly. And then they lost Andre Dillard, their starting left tackle. Had to kick Jason Peters out to left tackle, who was supposed to play guard. And I can't even remember who they started at guard. It was a mess. It was a mess for them. You're left with, 2 good linemen in Jason Kelsey and Jason Peters. And Jason Peters is now playing at his old position that he wasn't preparing for the entire year. Just tough. Tough stuff.
Indeed. The Raiders won a close game over the Panthers. I don't have much to say, but it was entertaining.
The only thing I have to say is the Panthers impressed me. The Panthers did better than I thought. I thought the Panthers would be competing for one of the worst teams in the NFL, and they still are. But I thought they were going to be bottom 3, and I don't think they're going to be bottom 3 anymore. So I was impressed with them.
My initial gut said to take the Jaguars, but I decided not to do that. That was a mistake because the Jaguars, some people were saying 0-16 and they win their first one. Phillip Rivers, we saw some of the good and bad from him. We saw a ton of yards, but also 2 costly interceptions.
Yeah, nothing's changed on the Phillip Rivers front. Still doing the same thing that that got him kicked out of the Chargers, basically. That was mutual, really. But he's throwing costly picks, and he really, really pushes it sometimes.
Is this his last season in the NFL?
Very well could be. If he keeps doing the late interceptions where it's it's not even close, he's throwing 30-70 balls, it's not going to work. He's not going to last.
The Browns were absolutely destroyed by the Baltimore Ravens, who won their 3rd straight season opener in a convincing fashion. The score was not as close as the 38-6 score might suggest. This was a completely lopsided affair, and obviously next week was going to be a big game for the Browns, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, that Ravens team is just so nasty. LJ Fort, man, I can't believe the Steelers let LJ Fort go. He's so good. He's a quality NFL player. I get sad every time thinking that he's with the Browns. Patrick Queen also did well thinking of inside linebackers. Elias Campbell did well. He had 3 pass breakups because he's a monster, and I loved him when he was in Jacksonville and in Arizona. Their team just looks better, which is nuts. And J.K. Dobbins, my prospect, got 2 touchdowns in this game. He wasn't used very often. He really the 2 touchdowns were basically his only carries in the game. He did good as well.
The Chargers and Bengals kicker Randy Bullock spoiled the debut for quarterback Joe Burrow, the number 1 overall pick for the Bengals. Pushed that potential game-tying kick wide. I didn't see much of this game, but more disappointment for the Bengals. But Burrow looked like a bright spot, even though he made a few mistakes.
Yeah, this is the one game I didn't watch. I was super uninterested in it with the Saints-Bucks happening and the Cardinals-49ers happening at the same time.
So I missed a good part of the Buccaneers and Saints game, but as far as I could tell, the Saints looked like the more complete team, and for the Buccaneers, it looked like Tom Brady had only been working with that group of players for a month.
Yeah, that's about right. The Saints overall had the better team, and that came to play, and then Tom Brady just looked slow, and Gronk doesn't look like Gronk of old. He looks like he took a year off football, which he did. So, Bucks team has got some stuff to figure out. Tom Brady didn't play that well. The whole team wasn't great. Their defense is actually surprisingly good. Devin White, I might have to eat my words because he actually looks decent. I really, really thought he was going to fail, within 2 years. I really thought he was going to be that bad. So, I mean, he's doing good. Jason Pierre-Paul's still doing stuff, still getting sacks. I like their defense. They just got to work on their offense.
I got to give you major props for pointing out the Cardinals and 49ers line last week. I know it's a divisional game, but I thought the 49ers would have a little better showing, but that Cardinals offense and Kyler Murray came to play. That guy looks like he could be, I really think could be the next Russell Wilson. Even if he's not as good, he's the next type of player like that.
I literally say that to everyone. Every single person. And I'm telling everyone, Kyler Murray is this year's MVP. By the end of the year, I think we're going to be crowning him. It's been a sophomore quarterback the past 2 years, at least. Can't remember who won it before Patrick Mahomes now. But, what's it called? He looks exactly like Russell Wilson. He's a little bit shorter, but it's just he's got that baseball background. He's smart with when he runs. He can actually throw. It's just I loved him coming out as a prospect. I thought that if the Cardinals were going to be stupid and dump off Josh Rosen in one season without giving him a chance, it would be for Kyler Murray. And he's panned out exactly like that. The dude has one of the most underrated skills I had never really thought about with a quarterback because it's never really been applicable to the Steelers. But he is probably the best sliding quarterback in the NFL. Watching him slide is a thing of beauty. He got 2 roughing the passer calls on him because he just slides so perfectly. He's able to sell it. So he got 30 yards gifted to him. He's never getting hit other than that. And if he is, he's getting 15-yard penalties for it to help his offense. Absolutely incredible. He is going to last in the NFL because he's going to keep his body healthy. He is not the Cam Newton type to run into the people. He's not the Lamar Jackson type that's going to take hits. He knows when to slide from his baseball background. I love Kyler Murray. I am going to praise him the end of time because I really, really think that highly of him.
Sunday Night Football had the Cowboys and Rams, and I think we both might have underestimated the Rams. I don't think they're that deep of a team, but it seems like they're in a better place than they were at this time a year ago.
They simplified the system for Jared Goff again. I think that last year they tried to complicate it a little much, and then Jared Goff regressed. And watching that game, it was just so simple. It was throw to a running back, throw to a running back, throw to a running back. All right, we'll actually do an actual throw. I'm talking about when only pass plays. And then, they really relied on the run game, and then it's all right, you got to pass to a running back. That was it. Jared Goff was actually do close to nothing in that game. So, I mean, I think that's good. I think simplifying it for him was good. He seemed overwhelmed last year. So, yeah, and the Cowboys' injuries just built up, man. Losing Leighton Vander Esch, losing their swing tackle in this game. Just tough, man. They were lining Aaron Donald up against their undrafted rookie Steele. You're not gonna have a good time if you're starting your undrafted free agent rookie up against Aaron Donald. It's just not gonna work. I promise you, it is not. It is never going to go well in your favor if you're the team playing the Rams. So, yeah, I think I definitely underestimated the Rams.
It looks like the Cowboys' offensive line could be in a big bit of trouble, which you had already mentioned.
Yeah. No, Tyron Smith has a neck injury. La'el Collins is still out. They're not, them and the Eagles, the NFC East, is just not in a good place with their offensive lines. Giants, Eagles, and Cowboys.
Okay, so I got our records wrong because I always forget to add the Steelers game in as one of those. But all right,
happens.
Moving on to Monday night, we already talked about the Steelers, and now the last game of the Titans and Broncos. This is a game that the Titans really controlled, and they should not have needed Steven Gostkowski to make what should normally be considered a chip shot. But he missed 4 kicks. I know one was blocked, but it never should have come to this. The Titans should have easily covered.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the kicking game, and they're sticking with Gostkowski, surprisingly, they would have won pretty handily. It's just the kicking game really screwed them. It was a swing of 13 points, 3 missed field goals, 1 missed extra point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they should have won by a lot more.
Well,
it
10, but
sucks,
yeah.
man. Picking them to cover was so tough.
Yeah, so the Titans had the worst field goal percentage in the league last year at 44%. So I guess this is just a team that's going to struggle with that.
Yes, so, man, but they switched kickers. It's just same story, different kicker.
All right, we were going to use this segment to pick the Thursday night game. We both picked the Bengals +6. The Browns just won that game 35-30. Pretty entertaining game. The Browns came out and played a really good game offensively. Got a key turnover on Joe Burrow when the Bengals offensive line, Fred Johnson may, God rest his poor soul, the former Steeler, and Bobby Hart would be the worst offensive lineman in the league if it weren't for the lovely Eric Flowers. So, a pretty entertaining game to honor the NFL's 100th anniversary.
Yeah, very interesting choice. Not, I would have thought it was ideal, but it was an entertaining game, so, no.
For the Browns, I called it a must-win pretty much, and they're not out of the woodwork yet, but that was huge. And the Bengals, they look like exactly what I was expecting through 2 weeks. They're a team that's going to be a lot harder to beat than they were last year, but ultimately, I think their peak is maybe 6 wins.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them to get more than that.
But they're going to surprise some teams, and I think they already have a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. As far as injury news to talk about, we already talked about some of these guys, Lev Bell, Leighton Vander Esch. A couple other guys that hit injured reserve were cornerback Richard Sherman of the 49ers and running back Marlon Mack of the Colts, who sadly tore his Achilles on Sunday. So just stuff that you hate to see. Is Sherman's a season ender? I don't think it is.
No. I was surprised he went on IR. They called it just a hamstring strain. Just said it's just for 3 weeks. He's going to be perfectly healthy.
We need some sort of differentiation between regular IR and IR that puts you out for the season, because now that you can only miss 3 weeks and come back, it's it's hard to tell exactly how serious these injuries are sometimes.
Yeah, it's tough to keep up with. It's just a lot.
So we have news on a couple interesting receiver situations. The first is that the Browns are reportedly trying to trade Odell Beckham Jr., and for the Bears, Allen Robinson seems to be upset. I forget exactly what he did, but I know that it involves something on social media. He's said that he's undervalued and wants a new contract, and I don't believe he's gotten that yet, has he?
No, he was frustrated. He deleted all the Bears stuff off his Instagram, all the Bears pictures and Bears from his bio. And then he went on to say he was frustrated with how contract negotiations have gone because he's being significantly undervalued for the wide receiver market currently. So they since then reversed ship, and I don't know if it's to save face and maybe try and help facilitate a trade, or if the talks just got better. But he said he wants to be with the Bears, and it's cool now. He's okay. He's gonna live, he said.
The Pro Football Hall of Fame announced its class for the 2021 Modern nominees. There were 130 different names. There's a handful of former Steelers, including Alan Faneca and Hines Ward, two guys that we've seen among the finalists and semifinalists. Heath Miller was a guy that made it for the first time. Joey Porter, Casey Hampton, and Gary Anderson also made it. Ron Stark, who spent one season with the team in 1995, is also one other one. There were some other recognizable names, including guys like Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson. So I don't even remember this being headlined last year, but I guess it's a bigger deal this year because it's a centennial class that's supposed to be included with them now that we've had coronavirus pushing it back.
Yeah, man. It's going to be an interesting year. Don't think Keith Miller is going to make it. I mean, very good dude, but I really, really don't think Keith Miller is ever going to make it to the Hall of Fame.
No, he's more of a Steelers Hall of Honor kind of guy. Anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap this up? Alrighty. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. If you have any questions about the show, please feel free to email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check out the show's website at strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. And check out our various social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we post our episodes on SoundCloud and YouTube under our podcast's name. Thank you for listening and have a terrific night, and hopefully you enjoyed the Thursday night football as we move towards week 2 of the NFL season in 2020. Thank you.
Bye.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.